Hi, and welcome to the Love How Deep podcast with Brian and Heather Mayer. Our purpose is to equip married couples like you with resources that rely on the transformative power of God's Word to strengthen your relationship.
Wow, Heather, what a great introduction. I'm sure people are intrigued and excited to hear what we have to say, right?
Well, hopefully they're excited to hear what they can learn. Let's go
All
with
right.
it.
All right. Well, I'm Brian.
I'm Heather.
Yeah, and we are super excited that you've joined us. We want to help you as a married couple.
Yes, we do.
We want to help you with your relationship. We want to help point you toward godly principles because we know that that's what works, and that's what really has worked in our marriage, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I will tell you, like, we don't have it all figured out. We have our bumps along the road, but we do have some good things figured out. And, you know, with God being the center of our marriage is the most important thing. And yeah, I think we've got some things figured out.
I think we
Brian,
do.
you think so?
I think we do. But we'll share a lot of what works and probably a lot of what doesn't to help you maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that we've experienced in our relationship.
So that cast iron skillet over the top of your head, is that a...
That's probably something that maybe
you
who are listening may not want to do.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work so well.
All right. Well, I tell you what, I wanted you to share a little bit about, you know, what really led you to this place where, you know, you have this desire to help married couples. You want them to strengthen their relationship. You want to point them closer to God. What would you say about that?
That's a huge question. That's what I want to say. That's a big question. Yeah, I definitely have a passion that I feel like God birthed inside of me to help married couples. And just to take it all the way back to my childhood, I was raised in a Christian home. My dad was the minister, one of the ministers at the church. So I was raised knowing about God. I accepted Christ at an early age. Definitely knew right from wrong. Definitely had a big focus on making those right choices. And so I think all of that helped me, you know, through my childhood, through adulthood. And when I was first married at the age of 21, that's not with Brian. I don't even know.
How with someone else?
How do I even go?
Wait, I didn't know this. Tell me.
Let me tell you some more details, Brian, things you don't know about me. So I was previously married for quite a long time, and that did not end well. I don't need to go into all the details. You just know that it did not end well. I didn't want to have to go through a divorce. I didn't want... I wanted God to fix things. I wanted him to change me. I wanted him to change him, for there to be restoration in our marriage. And I truly believed that God could do it, but it didn't happen. And so I'm left with all of that baggage and junk inside of me. And so we fast forward to Brian. When he enters the picture, he terrified me because he was a man, and I just had a lot of issues there. He's over here saying, what'd I do?
I'm being quiet.
He's making faces, y'all. If only you could see him. But with everything that I had been through, I really didn't want to be one of those kinds of women that was so bitter and negative about just that on marriage, basically, that all men were horrible and evil and of the devil. I didn't want to be that way, even though, I mean, honestly, I did feel that way at first, but God brought me a long way, you know, as I was healing. You know, it took a long time for me to heal, but I still had this strong belief that God created marriage, starting with Adam and Eve, and he wanted that. He wants us to have beautiful, strong marriages that encourage other people. And I believed that could still happen. So Brian comes along and I have a lot to deal with there. But I feel like through our friendship, very long friendship and dating and in our marriage, I feel like God taught me that what Satan meant for bad, he could turn to good. In Genesis 50, verse 20, it says, "As for you, you meant evil against me. God meant it for good." And In Romans 8:28, it says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." So why I had to go through all that junk, I don't know. But what I do know is that I can take that and I can apply the things that I've learned, like how to communicate. That was a huge one for me, and how to forgive and how to trust. I could apply those things that I learned to the marriage that Brian and I have. And I can, you know, those, I guess that's my platform, or really my soapbox, right, Brian? It's my
Mm-hmm.
soapbox. Like, I
It
want
is.
this for other people. I want them to get it, to understand what it means to forgive and what it means to let go of those hurts from the past and not continue to carry that baggage around. And it just, I guess all of that just spurs me on to want to help other people, you know, short of like banging their heads against the wall or something. I just want people to get it, to understand it, to apply it to their marriages, in all areas of their lives. And so I have this passion that's born inside of me. You know, it's all about like creating new habits, starting with, you know, Jesus being the center of my life, to it being the center of our marriage, to learning how to communicate the right way, to learning how to forgive, to resolve conflict in different ways. And one thing that I have learned is that marriage is hard work, but it's worth it. And when you want something badly enough, you're going to do whatever it takes to get it. Would you agree with that, Brian?
I would agree
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure.
What about
So,
you?
yeah,
What
sure.
what drives you to do this?
Yeah. So my story, we have some similarities, but we have a lot of differences too. And I think how we were raised and what we experienced. And I experienced probably a lot more heartache as a child, being a child of divorced parents. I want to say when I was 2 or 3 years old. So that's pretty much what I knew. Both of my parents were remarried, but I mean, I have to say, I probably saw some things that were good about marriage, but I saw a lot of what was not good about marriage. And you know, the nice thing though, growing up, that even though I was part of broken homes, I was actually sent to church as a child, even though, you know, my father and my stepmother really at that time weren't really following Christ. Church wasn't really that important to them. Somehow, some way, at least my stepmother found it very important that it be a part of her children's lives. And so I would go. And so I went, you know, for quite a while and went pretty consistently. And so I think I kind of had that sort of those seeds planted within me as a child. And so, which I'm grateful for. And then, you know, in just a minute, I'll kind of talk about why that was important. But, you know, I definitely fell away my teenage years. I would say from age 16 to 28, I didn't step foot inside of a church. And it wasn't because, you know, I was mad at God or I didn't believe in him or I renounced him. It was just that, you know what, you know, I'm saved. He's got me. He'll take care of me. And you know what, I've got better things to do with my Sunday. You know, things like sleeping in and doing yard work and I don't know, whatever else were much more important at that point to me than was church. And so, but my first marriage ended up falling apart. And I don't know if you can hear that. We have a train close to our neighborhood. You may not be able to hear that, but I actually enjoy that. It's
You
kind of
do
a
like
neat
the
little
train.
sound. Yeah, it's
He's
just
like a little kid when the
right.
train comes by.
Brings me back to my childhood. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
There it
there it
is.
is. Maybe you could hear that. So,
And
so
focus.
all right, let's bring it back. So, was married the first time, and the marriage lasted about 5 years. It started to fall apart at the end, and you know the big reason for that is because Christ was really nowhere to be found in our marriage. And you know, I take most of the blame for that. Obviously, being the male and being the spiritual head of the home, that wasn't something that I thought was important at that time, and so. But toward the end, I realized and recognized how important it was. And so I did, you know, kind of say to myself, you know, I've got to get back to this. And so did that. And then, you know, as Heather talked about, she and I met and our relationship progressed and we got married. And pretty quickly, yeah, we just discovered it was like, wow, if you put Christ at the center and you focus on him and you make that a pretty big part of your individual life and your marriage, you can kind of see like how strong things can really be. And so I don't remember the exact conversation, but I'm assuming at some point we must have talked about, wow, why don't we do this to try to help other people, you know? And
Right.
so,
I don't remember like an initial conversation, but I
yeah,
know that we talked a lot about that, just that passion, just really kind of
right,
sparking inside of us.
right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we, at the church we were at in Florida, we were asked to come to, I think it was called the Breakthrough Weekend. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
And they said, hey, why don't you, on a break, go up to the front of the area that we were at and just kind of sit there and hang, and we'll let people know that you're there. And if they want to talk about their marriage, they can come to you. And how many people did we have come and visit us?
One.
Did we have one? I
We had
didn't think we
one.
had any.
Yeah, we had
Okay.
one.
Wow. You have a better memory than I do. But,
Yes.
so yeah, so my point there is very small beginnings.
Very small.
But it was, I'd say probably what led us to where we are
I
now,
think so.
just putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
So, and so I suppose with mine, I should probably give a verse that really means a lot to me. And it's in
Sure.
Philippians 1, verse 6. Says that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. And I think what that means to me, as you've heard my story, you can tell I've had a lot of twists and turns, a very windy road in my relationship with Christ. And so I really love this verse because it says that to me, no matter where I go, what I do, what the twists and turns are, if I turn away from him, that I can always bring it back, and he's always going to be there for me. So I guess
good.
that's probably maybe a long-winded way to answer your question. So then I guess with that kind of brings us up a little bit more to present. I don't
Kind
know,
of.
kind of.
To 2011.
Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah.
let's start there. What happened then?
So in 2011, we were asked to be part of the marriage mentor ministry at our church. And so we went through the training and we began working with couples for premarital counseling, and then also for couples that were struggling in their marriage and hurting. And yeah, we've worked with a lot of couples that way. We do lead the ministry now, but that was and it's interesting. When we were first asked to do it, we were only married for 6 years, and it was like, wait, have we been married long enough to be quote unquote experts in this field? I don't know. And we're both divorced. Is like, wait, what? Like, should we even be doing this? We don't have it together. But they saw something in us and just felt like we would, I guess, be an asset to help other
Mm-hmm.
people. And it was our passion, like we've talked about. And
Mm-hmm.
so we definitely believe like this was a God thing. We have loved it. Not every moment's been lovely, but I think overall it's definitely been an incredible ministry to be a part of.
Yeah, it made me think about. I don't. Do you remember back to those first few couples? What was it like for you sitting in front of these couples?
Scary.
Okay, yeah,
Scary.
I can vouch for that. Right.
Feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, even though
Yes.
I've been trained.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, I call it the imposter syndrome,
yes,
where we wait to see if someone's going to figure out that we are a fraud,
yeah,
and we don't
yeah.
know what we're doing. We don't know what we're talking about. But at the end of the day, we do know that the Lord just cares about our availability, not our ability. So,
That is true.
but yeah, I was just as nervous
Thank
as you
goodness.
were.
Yes.
And really, if you want me to admit, I mean, I even find that happening now to me.
Yeah.
You
It
know.
can still be nerve wracking now.
Yes, it sure can.
Yeah.
So, and then, so we were in this ministry for a couple of years, and then something kind of hit me that I was enjoying it, even though I did just talk about how scary it was, just like Heather. But, and couple that with being burned out in the corporate world, and I just said, you know what? I think doing something like this professionally might be what I would like to do. And so I had prayed about it. Didn't say a word to Heather, which
No,
probably,
he didn't.
yeah, in hindsight was probably not the right thing to do, because I had gotten so much further along in my thought process for this whole thing, and this was a pretty big deal. And so when I sort of came to her and said, hey, honey, I would like to go ahead and quit my corporate job. I know I make 2/3 to 3/4 of our family income, but I'd like to quit and go back to school. And yeah, how was that for you?
Terrifying. And I told him, no, he can't do that. Brian, you cannot do that. You know, I'm a teacher and I make no money, right?
That's right.
Like, this
Yeah.
is like, what? Yeah. Yeah, that was a little bit of insanity. I was completely shocked. And yeah, but yet here we are.
Yes, here we are.
He
And
did go to school. I obviously had to do a lot of praying about that too, and a lot of discussion, and just, yeah, a
right.
lot of trust, a lot of faith.
Yeah. And so here I am, since 2014, doing what I
Yes.
love, helping couples professionally. We're doing
Yes.
it as mentors. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything better. So it's just been a wonderful journey. And then
Yeah.
I think that brings us a little bit more fast forwarded to,
There's a really long backstory about
right,
us,
right,
Brian. Speed it up.
right. Well, I tell you what, tell us, you want to talk a little bit about what Niagara Falls in 2016 did for us?
Yeah, so in 2016 we went on vacation to Niagara Falls, and if you've ever been there, you know what we're talking about. It's just this vast amount of water, and where does it come from and where does it go, and it never runs out, and it was just incredible, and it just made us think of God's love and how deep it is, um and how everlasting it is. He doesn't run out of love for us. It's always flowing into us if we'll just accept that. It just, yeah. Am I covering all of that, Brian? Am I just rambling endlessly now?
No, yeah, I would say you're right. It's really the closest thing on earth that I've ever come to where I started to recognize and realize the power of God's love. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, it just had such an impact. And that's really what's led to the birth of Love How Deep, which really didn't start for another 5 years. So I
yeah,
guess
that's
somehow
true.
that idea was percolating, was kind of in the background. I don't know
Yeah.
if God was preparing us. I always say his timing is perfect.
Yes.
We want to either jump ahead or sometimes we don't want to do anything at all because we're fearful. But
Who, me?
yeah, in the relationship, I'm sometimes the one that wants to put my foot on the pedal, and then Heather likes to.
Put the foot on the
I'll
brake.
be nice and say she gently taps the brakes. So, but
It
and
makes us a good team.
right, that's right. And so, so yeah, that's really where it was born, and so that's why we're doing what we're doing now. Is we just want to help couples like you for sure, and I'll say too I guess the passage in the Bible that really was brought to us as part of this journey to Niagara Falls and now to Love How Deep was in Ephesians chapter 3. It's 16 through 19. I don't know, do you want to read that?
Sure. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have the power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God.
Yeah, and so I really love that
Yeah,
passage because, I
beautiful.
mean, it just says a lot.
Yeah,
It
it
talks
does.
about how Christ will dwell within us as individuals, and then that we should be rooted in love, and that we have power together with all of God's people. And then I
Hmm.
think the part that really hit home for me was when it talks about how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, which is kind of like Niagara
Niagara
Falls.
Falls.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then too, I think knowing that this love, it's not a head knowledge. He says it
Yeah,
surpasses knowledge. It surpasses our brain. It's more about our heart, I think, right?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, uh, we just wanted to give you a flavor for kind of our journey and how we are where we are now. And I think
Hmm.
with that, wanted to talk a little bit about forgiveness. I think it's one of your soapbox
Yeah, it totally
topics, isn't
is.
it? Yes.
Sit back and get comfortable if you're not already.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Um, no, I think a big part of this is forgiveness. And I think that we've all probably been hurt by somebody, whether it was family member or friend or spouse or a child, like somebody along the road has hurt us. And we're all, we've all been guilty of harboring some bitterness, hatred, even this unforgiveness that's like a cancer to your soul. And it's important to understand that Christ forgave us first, that He made the choice to come to earth, to die on the cross, to forgive us for our sins. He made that choice to do that for us. He didn't have to, but He did, because He loves us and He wants us to be with Him, to be reconciled with Him. And because we are Christians, we, desire to be Christ-like. And so we are commanded to forgive others that hurt us, whether we feel like they deserve it or not, whether they even ask for forgiveness. We're still to forgive them and not harbor these things, because they can, in my life personally, when I was harboring so much unforgiveness, I could feel it just starting to ruin the relationships around me. I just had so much, I guess, negativity, and just, I was in self-protection mode. I really was. Just I didn't want to be hurt again. And so I had to protect myself. It was up to me. And yeah, I guess that kind of stemmed from the unforgiveness that I had for honestly, the things that had happened with my ex-husband, with just, yeah, I'll just say it ended with a restraining order. So you can imagine from there the type of hurt that I had been experiencing for a number of years. And to forgive him when he didn't ask for it, I could never have reconciliation with him. I was never going to get answers to my questions of why, but yet God commands me to forgive him. And it was, it was not easy. It was a huge, huge process. It was a choice for me. And I remember my best friend saying to me, Heather, you're going to have to forgive him. And I said, well, I know, but not today. I'm not ready. And she, as my friend and just a spiritual confidant, like, she was very patient with me and very understanding with me. And I know she prayed for me that I would get to that point to where I could forgive him. And I just thank God for that. But she was right. I was going to have to do that someday. And when I was finally able to, it was literally a choice that I made. And I was like, okay, all right. Like, I felt like God telling me, Heather, the stuff that you're holding on to is nothing compared to what I have for you if you just give that to me. And I was like, whoa, tears just streaming down my face. Like, can I do this? It's crazy. And I learned that it was a choice every single day, sometimes every hour. It was a choice that I was going to make. Jesus had a choice and he made it. He chose to forgive us. And I have a choice to forgive my ex-husband and to forgive anyone else along the road that has hurt me. I made that choice. It was not easy, and I eventually got to the point to where I could think about the hurt that was done, and I don't feel like it was about me. I feel like I'm talking about a movie, and not a very good movie. That's what it feels like. It doesn't feel personal anymore, I guess, if that makes sense. It just doesn't feel personal. It doesn't hurt, and I can pray for him. And I feel like that is just a true measure of forgiveness right there. And understanding that, and understanding like how Christ was able to heal me, and bring me to that point. Yeah, I guess that's why it's a big passion of mine for people to understand this forgiveness, no matter what it looks like, that no matter what the hurt looks like. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I know that's been a situation in your past that has been difficult, but I know you've done such an amazing job of moving forward from that and strengthening from that and learning from that. So I really appreciate that about you. And
Thank you.
I'll be quick about mine. I think my story about forgiveness, it's not about a marriage relationship, but I think it's important to talk about because it really is what kind of helped me learn about what forgiveness was and how to implement it in my marriage and in my life. And it really occurred with my mom when I was about 16, 17 years old, as a lot of teenagers do. It really just was very nasty to her, just said a lot of very hateful things and did a lot of things, I'll just leave it to your imagination as to probably some of the things I did. And there was at some point where, I don't know, maybe it was God, I suppose. I think he was knocking on my heart and kind of saying to me, like, look, you need to make amends. You need to repair what the damage that you have done. And so I remember one day I was sitting on my bed in my room, still living with my mom and my stepdad, and I saw my mom walk by, and I said, "Hey, can you come in here for a minute?" And she did, and she sat down on the bed next to me, and I began to just pour out my heart and just tell her how awful it was with the things that I had said and the things that I had done. And I really just said, would you please forgive me? I don't know if I used that word. I might not have known what that word was at that point, but I asked her for forgiveness, and she could have, thrown it back in my face. She could have said, "I'm not ready for that. You don't deserve that." But I just remember she immediately did, and I think we hugged each other, and it just all kind of melted away at that point. And one of the amazing things about that story is that I want to say maybe 6 months later, she had a really severe aneurysm, was never really the same, lived with it for a couple of years in and out of hospitals, was never back home. And then she passed away from complications due to that. And so I think now that I look back on that, had I never had that opportunity or that moment where God called on me to do that, I think there would be a lot of regret. But I do know that God would have helped heal me no matter what would have happened. But I'm just so glad I got that opportunity to do that. So
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, and I think that kind of brings us to, well, how does all that work, in our marriage today? And I think probably early on in our marriage, parenting was probably that topic and that thing that happened that we probably both didn't handle very well. And right, I mean, would you say so?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we had some differences, right? You
We
want me to
did.
go into that? Do you want me to just roll with it?
Just roll with it.
All right. So, yeah. So, we had different parenting styles. And this was my daughter from my previous marriage. So, obviously a blended family situation. But Heather, much more strict. I was much less strict. Came from our childhoods, right? I mean, you
I
grew
think
up in
so.
a home where, again, very strict, lots of rules, and they were enforced and, expected.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
I grew up in a situation, divorced household. I think a lot of the emotional and mental pain that probably my parents were going through, they probably didn't really focus too much on laying down a lot of rules because they were just trying to figure things out themselves. So, and again, we brought that into our parenting,
We did.
and it
Yeah,
definitely
I think
caused
that
a
the
lot of
way that you were
problems.
raised is usually how you end up parenting.
That's
So,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I don't think we realized that or recognized that at the time. And it
No.
took a lot of conversations about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I started to learn that that's how you were parented, I realized, oh, she's not just, doing this because, she's trying to give me a hard time. It's like, no, this is just how she was brought up. This is how she sees the world. And, yeah, and I mean, the same for me. And, but we went through some counseling. We talked to another married mentor couple
Yeah.
and really got some great advice, some great wisdom, and allowed us to kind of take a step back and look at what we were doing. And I think ultimately, we did not, I don't know that we went through this formal forgiveness exercise, so to speak, but we
Right.
ultimately had to ask for forgiveness and give each other forgiveness, right?
We
I
did.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
because I think that we were both so hurt by each other, and we didn't feel listened to. I didn't feel like I could really be a part of our daughter's life as, co-parenting kind of a thing because I was not her birth mom. And it just, even though Brian never said that, he's like, yes, I want you involved and things like that. But it just didn't play out that way. And so there was a lot of hurt there, I think, for both of us, and just misunderstanding, um, poor communication, and things like that. But yeah, definitely, working with another mentor couple who kind of counseled us through that. It was good. That was good. And we were able to forgive each other and really come together as a team. So we became that united front, that team, um, for raising her. Hmm.
that's right.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of a lot to take in, Brian, don't you think?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, you've heard a little bit about our hearts, kind of where our passions lie, and how God has just healed us individually. And we really hope that just by hearing the more about forgiveness and what it can do for you, how it can harm your relationships, how you can forgive because Jesus forgave you, can help your relationships. We hope that it's helped you to think more about it in your own life, in your own marriage. And, just pray and ask God who you might need to seek forgiveness from or grant forgiveness to. And, ask God to help you through that process because it is a process and it's not instantaneous, but it's something that God definitely wants to help you with. He wants to set you free from those hurts that you're still holding on to. So I hope that this has encouraged you.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, Heather and I actually have an online course that we did on forgiveness that we would love to talk to you just for a moment about. It's called The Power of Forgiveness, the Key to a Lasting Love for Christian Married Couples. It's got, I think, 6 modules, lots of videos hosted by us, worksheets with every video that you can complete as a couple. And you will really learn so much about forgiveness, especially from the important biblical perspective. And I think ultimately the goal here is that it will help you as a couple, as a married couple, heal from hurts, whether it be small things, just making it a routine in your marriage, or if there's been any large betrayals, this can certainly help with that. And then, ultimately, again, it will draw you closer together is really the main goal. And you can check out more about this course by going to our website. And especially go to our show notes. It's lovehowdeep.com/1, and that's the number 1. Again, those are the show notes to our episode. And we will put a link to the course in the show notes. And we're also going to put a special discount code in there for you listening to this first episode. And we hope you will come back and because we want to give it to you at a discount. And so normally the cost of the course is $297. And right now, don't know how long this will go on, but the code that we are going to put in there right now as we record this episode will be able to get it to you for $97. So, and we just thank you again in advance for purchasing the course and working through it and growing closer together because of it.
We really hope that it helps you,
Amen to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited that you've chosen to listen. So Brian and I have a lot of great content and even some special guests planned with the goal of strengthening your marriage from a godly perspective.
That's right. And, one thing we want you to remember is that marriage is not something you have. It's something you do every day. Bye for now.
Bye.